Flanagan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the March 6, 2017 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of Commissioners. My name is Bob Archer. I currently serve as chair of the commission and represent District 3 alongside Commissioner Shelley Bueller, who represents District 1, and Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let's get started. First item, please.
Item 1, proclamations, presentations. Number 1, update regarding the Grace Med Health Clinic. Alice Weingartner, Director of Community Development for Grace Med.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's so
Good
nice to
morning.
see you.
It's good
Good
to see
morning.
you too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, first of all, I'm going to start off with an apology because it appears that when I sent the report, I did not include the cover memo. And so that is what you now have. So I apologize for that and promise to do better next time. This is just a really brief update regarding the transition. I was sitting getting ready this morning and I'm thinking, wow, we're in our 8th month. And it's like we blinked and we're there. And a lot has happened in that time. The report that I've presented to you, it is for the first 6 months of data with regards to the transition. I know in my communication with Commissioner Archer, one of the questions he was asking was about trending data. It's really difficult to do that right now because we don't have an apples-to-apples comparison. But now as time goes on, we will be able to do that. And so the next report should be able to start showing what some of those trends look like. As far as the transition goes, we continue to promote the services within the community, really make folks aware of who Grace Med is and that we're here. I think there's sometimes things get lost in translation. And so patients who had been coming to the community health center aren't quite sure where to go. And so we continue to work on making sure that they make that connection back to their medical home. We continue to see new patients. Appointments can be made by calling 861-8800. We have open availability every day, and so we encourage folks to call. We do have some new services that we've brought online. We now are able to do immunizations for children during their clinic visits with their providers. And we are also looking at kicking off an oral health outreach program this fall. So we've been in communication with Topeka Public Schools and then some other community partners in hopes that we can at least start getting that dental initiative started at the beginning of this school year. And then we're very excited about our Project Wellspring, which will be our capital campaign, and we'll be doing a formal announcement about that in the next month or so. And so lots of good things are happening. I won't even begin to say that it's all been easy, but it certainly has been a fun ride. So there. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner,
I don't have
questions
any.
or
Alice,
comments for
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Right. Well, we look forward to having you at the Huntunan Lane location. I mean, this is a much-needed facility that's going to be used in our community, and I mean, just a lot of possibilities. I know that you're probably excited to get started on it.
Very much so. Very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next item, please.
Item 3, consent agenda.
Questions?
No, I have no questions on the approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item 4, new business. A, County Clerk. Number 1, consider all voucher payments.
Mr. Chairman, this morning we have vouchers that total $601,013.67. The highlights out of them are the holding accounts with the state of Kansas of $93,645.01, health insurance for $115,193.05, Solid Waste had $170,856.36, and then Parks and Recreation over several accounts of $87,223. I have no questions, and I would move for their approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item A2, consider correction orders.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item B, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contracts C-84 2017 and C-85 2017 with Auburn and Williamsport Townships for treatment of noxious weeds in their jurisdiction at a 100% reimbursement.
Morning, Commissioners. John Boyd, Parks and Rec. This is a basic service contract between noxious weed and the two townships. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
I have none. Move approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the contracts by Commissioner Bueller, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item C, Public Works Solid Waste. Number 1, consider acceptance of easements from the Southwest Urish Road, Southwest 17th Street to Huntoon project, and authorization to pay the property owner the agreed settlement amount of $25,000 payable from the Special Highway Improvement Account.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Block, Public Works and Solid Waste. This is a Public Works item. In this item, this easement here before you would be the last easement right-of-way acquisition that we need to acquire for the section for Urish Road from 17th up to Huntoon. As we had mentioned before, we are trying to make attempts to be able to bring that phase of work into this construction year, if at all possible. One of the things we need to accomplish to be able to do that is to get all easements required, and approval of this would be our last one, so it would help us move down the road. We feel this amount is a fair and reasonable price for what we are acquiring, so it's our recommendation that it be approved. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Questions or comments for Tom?
I have none.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item C2, consider approval of a request to exchange federal funds under the Federal Aid Fund Exchange Master Agreement with KDOT, making available $1,138,659.03 to Shawnee County for federal fiscal year October 1, 2016 through September 30, 2017, to be used for all phases of a project development.
Commissioners, Tom Block again with Public Works and Solid Waste. This too is a Public Works item, and this is similar to what we've done the past several years. Each year, the Federal Highway Administration sends funds down to the states through the local or through the state departments of transportation, and then the state departments of transportation, KDOT in this case, then takes some of those funds and or issues them to local governments. In this case, the amount that came to Shawnee County was the $1,138,659.03. The state, or KDOT, has implemented what's called an exchange program in which you can exchange those federal dollars, which carry a lot more administrative requirements and things of that nature that essentially raise the cost of construction. You can exchange those for 90 cents on the dollar for state dollars, which do not require all this additional, what we consider red tape. And in the end, is our belief, and we believe it's proven to be true, in our end, we believe we can get more projects by exchanging the federal dollars for state dollars. And so that's what our request is here today. There's an agreement with KDOT to be able to use or be able to exchange those funds, the federal funds, and it is our recommendation that we do it again this year. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
My only question is, this red tape, there's no value added by this
No,
red tape,
no.
I assume.
It is, the design is all the same. It's really just administrative things.
Okay.
And in requirements to the contractor. So the contractor has to put more money into basically doing paperwork.
Okay.
And so no, the design would be exactly the same. There's no reduction in specifications. There's no reduction in quality of project. So.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
Commissioner Cook, any questions?
No, this is an item that's come before the commission, fairly routine. It happens just about every year about this time.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Next item, please.
Item C3, consider awarding the bid to Morton Buildings, Horton, Kansas, for the design and construction of an equipment storage building located at Public Works District Number 3, 13330 Northwest 62nd Street, Rossville, in an amount of $70,000, and authorization and execution of contract C86-2017 for same payable from the Road Maintenance Fund.
Commissioners, Tom Block, once again, Public Works and Solid Waste. This too is a Public Works item, and this is follow-up to some from the authorization the Commission had given us to take some funds and for the use of constructing an equipment storage facility at our District 3 road maintenance facility. At that time, we had budgeted $70,000 for this project. We went out for bids, received just one bid. However, it did meet all the specifications, but the bid came in at $1,221 more than what we had budgeted. So in an effort to see if we could figure out a way to get it back into the budget, we contacted the contractor and to see if we could negotiate them down to our budget amount, and they said if we basically add 30 days of working time to the schedule, they could bring it in at $70,000. That 30 days has really no impact on us, so we agreed that we would present that to you for consideration. We would recommend that we go ahead and award the negotiated price of $70,000, so it meets our budget, and all it essentially does is just extend the contract time 30 days. I think, or maybe it's 45 days. I think it's 45 days, but it has no impact, so we would recommend it be approved.
Questions or comments regarding the
No
contract?
questions.
I would move for approval.
Second.
Motion made to approve the contract by Commissioner Cook and seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0.
right,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much, Tom. Next item, please.
Item D, County Councilor number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C87-2017 with HTK Architects PA for architectural services related to the planned renovation of the Kansas Expo Center facilities.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jim Crowell, Shawnee County Councilor. On December 29th, you directed the County Councilor's Office to negotiate a contract with HTK to provide architectural services on the Expo Center renovation project. This contract is the result of those negotiations. It provides for those services in 2 phases, a Phase A and a Phase B. The initial phase, Phase A, is the master planning phase. We'll start that with a market study to update a previous market study and to make sure that the information provided in that study is still current and applicable and should be guiding our decisions when we start designing the renovations for this project. During this phase, HTK will also be receiving public input from both the public and stakeholders in the project and be presenting us with concept design so that we can ultimately decide what direction we're going. What's the scope of this project within the $45 million interlocal agreement, how we're going to phase the construction, how we're going to finance the construction. So all of these decisions will be made as part of Phase A. The fees for Phase A will be $175,000. We'll then negotiate the fees for Phase B to cover the construction period, and when we know exactly what we're doing, so we can be a little more precise at that point in time when we do that. I've got Chuck Smith with HTK here to answer any more specific questions you might have about the services that they'll provide to Shawnee County pursuant to this contract. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there
also.
questions? Commissioner Cook?
Jim, thank you very much, but if we could start with the market study that was done originally. This is the 2010 market study that was conducted by SMG in anticipation of wanting to look at renovations to the Expo Center, right?
Correct.
And so we're talking about a market study that was done 7 years ago, pre-collapse, pre-recession. I think it's fair to say quite a few economic factors have changed over the last 7 years. Is that fair?
That's fair. It's a matter of doing our due diligence now. No one has concluded that we throw out that previous study. It's just a matter of a recognition that things change pretty quickly.
Right.
And they have in society. We want to make sure that 10, 15 years from now that we feel comfortable that we did everything we could to spend the public's dollars in the best manner possible for the public.
And then based on that 2010 market study that SMG did, they then began a campaign for the renovations of the Expo Center. And that's where in 2012 we had on the ballot, or 2014, thank you. 2014 had on the ballot for the sales tax extension and for the Expo Center to be part of that, right?
Yes.
And so when we voted for the sales tax extension and for $45 million ultimately, which was the amount determined to go to the Expo Center, we were kind of using this market study as a template of what the needs of the Expo Center might be, correct?
Yes.
But we're not bound by that market study, locked in saying this is exactly what it's going to be.
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure we clarify that for the public, because I think there might be a misconception in the public that, you know, what was presented in 2000 during that sales tax extension was a conceptual idea, and this is ultimately now we're getting past the conceptual idea and moving into a concrete plan.
Correct. And like I said earlier, I haven't heard anyone say, let's throw that out, ignore it. It's a matter of let's update our perspective based upon current data and make sure we're comfortable during this design process that we're working off of current updated information.
And then to follow up on that, in May of 2016, so a year ago, is when we sent out for a request for qualifications. If you can, just for the people here and people watching and the media, what's the difference between request for production or a RFP or performance and RFQ, request for qualification?
They're different terms for a similar process. It's the legal process that the county goes through to gather information amongst, for service contracts in particular. We do an RFQ to take a look at the qualifications because, for example, we'll do requests for bids for garbage totes, okay? And we have specifications for those, and we all recognize that one garbage tote is pretty similar to the next overall, as long as what we're looking at is price, generally speaking. For services, that's not exactly the way it works, and services aren't necessarily interchangeable. We define what it is we're looking for, and then we're trying to make a decision based upon the information received in the request for qualifications as to which company might be best qualified to provide the services we're seeking.
It took us about 6 months to get through that process, didn't it?
Yes, that all occurred before I became county councilor. I came in on the last steps of it, but you'll recall that Mr. Eckert, my predecessor, and a committee, a professional services committee, reviewed these proposals, went on site visits to different facilities, and then ultimately made the recommendation to select HTK.
And that was out of a total of 7 firms that had applied.
That's my understanding, yes.
And so out of the 7 firms, we settled with, or selected, I guess not settled, but that sounds, chose HTK Architects.
They were determined to be the most qualified.
Okay.
But I might, may I?
Yes, of course,
But
Commissioner.
that was conceptual. I mean, when the firms were presenting information to the committee, it was conceptual. It was not the design part of really the details of the project. So that's the next step, right?
Right. And that's exactly
Yeah.
where I'm getting. I
Yeah.
just I want to make sure we maybe take our time and lay out for the public. I know that I received a series of emails over the weekend with maybe that we're spending $175,000 on a consultant, and why aren't we just getting out there and building this already? And so I wanted to kind of just take a moment to explain, how did we get to the spot we're at today in making a decision today regarding this phase one? And so maybe if, Mr. Chairman, if we can have HTK talk about what this public input, what this market study is going to look like.
Did you have any other thoughts,
Well, and
Commissioner?
Just
before-
when the long-range planning was done by the Expo Center SMG several years ago, it was a long-range plan, and actually the needs, the cost identified for the Expo Center were far above $45 million. But when taxpayers agreed that we at least put some tax dollars into the Expo Center, then the interlocal set forward that $45 million. But past that point, we haven't identified how much that $45 million is going where. So anyway,
Correct.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it'd be helpful, I think, to have some explanation as well on this next process.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chuck Smith, HTK Architects. So a little bit about the process. Master plan process is really kind of a five-step, well, the fifth step's really implementing of it, really four really good steps. And really, first one kind of overseeing one is engagement of the process. Then we research, vision, and refine. So step through those really kind of quickly. The idea behind the engagement part is really to, first of all, right out the gate, identify our marketing analysis consultant, who we're going to have on board. And while that's going on, really engage the county and the leadership to identify who the folks are going to be, and really set up an advisory committee, and that kind of a core group of people that, you know, we see being our facilities management group at SMG currently. We see those, you know, maybe people on the board, Expo board. We see potentially maybe involvement by one of the commissioners, as well as part of our department agent leadership here in the county. And then really take that process, that group, and start to identify what those stakeholders are locally that we want to engage, and begin to identify where we want to head with engaging a market analysis guy. So this is kind of happening while we got an RFQ out for the marketing person. As that person comes online, then we're going to set up, really have a kickoff meeting that has that advisory group and that marketing person in place, and really discuss how we're going to engage industry stakeholders, market stakeholders, and local stakeholders in the process. And then as they take off with their process of doing research, benchmarking areas, benchmarking similar facilities, similar demographics and economic regions that might have a role, or at least a comparison to what we're trying to do here or would like to do here. While they're doing that, then the design team really engages in really better understanding the existing facility, understanding its restrictions, if you will, or its what it is and what it will allow us to do and won't allow us to do, and really have that under our belt and understanding that. And of course, part of that will be deferred maintenance and the impact on deferred maintenance on the project and those costs. And then that market analysis, market consultant will start to feed back into that research process and really start to define what their results are and make those kind of recommendations, if you will, or at least findings known to the advisory committee. The research point at that point, I think, is a good touch point again to reach out to stakeholders, especially community stakeholders, and get some feedback at that point. With that, then we're really driving into a process of visioning, which is, if everybody's favorite part, I think, is really starting to conceive what those parts and pieces mean from the market study into physical needs for the facility, both program in terms of spaces and how they would touch or at least occupy the site, and what they might mean in terms of renovations or expansions to the facility. And that visioning process is really multiple concepts that get tested kind of back and forth with what we're learning from the market study, and really start to identify what the possibilities are. And with a lot of good feedback from the management group, I think is important to understand how these facilities operate as we can think about those things. Again, during that visioning process, a great touch point for stakeholders, both market leaders as well as community.
And then once we kind of move through that process, we'll really move into the refinement of the project, or refining that master plan. So hopefully through this visioning, we've started kind of big picture, and then we've started to filter our way down into something more tangible and more understandable and achievable. And then, of course, the refinement process is really diving into really what we believe the costs are going to be and settle on a plan and those costs, as well as really start to discuss the implementation schedule and how that impacts funding and financial component to the project. And it also will be having our market analysis consultant give us economic feedback. This is where we're headed. How's that? Is this going to achieve what we think it's going to achieve from your earlier study? And then really finalize that plan and then set forth a motion to implement it, which is really engage in a funding mechanism and move us forward with design and engineering of the project. So that's kind of the overview of what all happens. We're going to try to cram that into 6 months here and really get this thing moving with a lot of intent and meaning. So, any questions?
Questions? Yes, Commissioner Cook.
Why don't we just skip all that, grab your T-square, your drafting, sheets, and start designing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think every designer will probably stand up here and tell you that our role is to make sure that we facilitate a process and a planning process that it meets the needs of our client and not our aspirations or our personal opinions of what should happen or may happen, but really gather the right people and put them in the room and get them in front of you so we can make informed decisions about where we're going to spend $45 million or how we're going to spend it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And we're designing ultimately a facility that's not just relevant for today, but we're going to be designing a facility that's relevant for the next 20 years, or in this case, we went for over 30 years since the original construction with the Expo Center. And I think you may have been involved in that process originally as well.
Yeah, our firm was involved in that process originally as well, and an interesting process, but yeah, you know, the market changed, obviously, since when it was originally, the facility really conceived to how it operates and some of the events and some of what's, you know, top of the line type of things that are happening today at the Expo Center, and as well as what happens in the community and as well. I think the big key is to understand there's really kind of two components to this facility. Those are what economic drivers that are immediate impact economic drivers or types of needs or uses or programming or events you can put in there, and then what are those other ones that may not have as big a direct economic impact but have a huge influence on the quality of life in Topeka. So those are different, and they have different types of first cost or first direct economic impact, but they all are meaningful for the long-term growth and well-being of Topeka. So there's a philosophical part from the architect.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Commissioner, any other?
No, I don't have any other questions.
Sounds to me like a pretty systematic approach. And when you're looking at a project of this scope, I think it's smart to go this way. But thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity. We're excited to get started. So.
We're excited too. I know we all got emails over the weekend, and if anybody wants to make comments on this approach and working with HTK, please come up and give us your name and your thoughts.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Marty Bloomquist, and I'm a lifelong Shawnee County resident. I'm a voter, and I guess I'm a stakeholder.
Yes.
So, anyway, you were someone mentioned something about that this is a huge project, huge proportion. It seems to me like it would be rather hasty to enter into a contract today, given how big it is. I think this needs a lot of consideration, and I think you've all said that in one way or another. I am urging you to vote no today on negotiating this $175,000 marketing contract to be paid out of Shawnee County sales tax money for the Kansas Expo Center project. seeing this item suddenly in the paper yesterday was truly a surprise to me, as I'm sure it was to a lot of Shawnee County voters. I want to give you a few statistics. I didn't know this, but roughly we have 197,000 people that live in Shawnee County. Of those 197,000, 100,000 of them are registered voters. That is truly amazing. I got that this morning from the Shawnee County Election Office. And when the woman looked it up, she was surprised. And she says, "This is great news. I didn't know this." So anyway, back in 2014 in November, in the general elections, almost 60,000 voters in Shawnee County voted for this sales tax. Now, almost 20,000 of them said they didn't want it, but 39,000 said they did. So that's, if you look at the number of registered voters in this county versus the number that voted for that issue, whether it be yay or nay in this county, that was amazing. That's good news. It sounds like what we have are a lot of people in Shawnee County that want to be part of the process. They want to be included. And Shawnee County voters have a vision. They want to see something that is going to suit our needs currently, but other things that are going to work well into the future as well. So anyway, I'm asking you that you vote no today on this very, very important contract. And you can read the rest of my letter. But in closing, the voters of Shawnee County felt strongly through all of your hard work and all of your due diligence that the elected officials more than adequately put forth a good description of the projects, including their best try at cost estimates. And like everybody said, cost estimates are just cost estimates. But we had to have something that we could vote on. We had to have information to vote on. So I think you guys made a great effort toward that end. And I think it did reflect the current needs of Shawnee Countyans as well as the future visions of Shawnee County and the surrounding areas. Thank you very much. Those are my thoughts.
Marty, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
You said vote no today, but what specific analysis or additional data do you want to see before we proceed? I guess I'm confused.
Well, I think that's a question that the voters need to have time to ruminate on. This is a very important decision.
Right.
And I think it would be prudent on your part to give this some time and open it up for more, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, public discussion.
And well, that's part of the point of moving forward at this point, is to open up a dialogue with the voters and the citizens of Shawnee County to make sure that we're on target with what they want, not now, but also in the future.
I've just lost my voice. But I think you need to spend more time on this before you encumber money.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cook?
Marcus Bloomquist, just sorry, I know you're struggling there, but the reason I wanted to kind of make sure we recap where we were at to get to this point is May of last year is where we asked for architectural firms, engineering firms to let us know what they would be able to bring to Topeka and Shawnee County for the Expo Center. We had 7 firms that applied, and out of a 6-month process, HTK was chosen as being the most qualified of those 7 firms. Our contract today is just to do what you're asking for, is for HTK to engage the public and HTK to speak with the people that are currently using the facility to get their input for the big picture of what the future of the Expo Center is going to look like. And so I think that there might be a misunderstanding as to what is being approved today. Because what we're approving today, we're asking to be approved today, is exactly what you're asking us to do. You're asking us to engage the public. You're asking us to make sure we have our ducks in a row, make sure we've got everything ready to go so we can start the actual physical design and renovations to the Expo Center. And HDK was, again, after a 6-month process, chosen to be the best qualified to do that task. And so I again, want to make sure that we're both clear. What you're asking us to do is exactly what is being asked to do by our county counselor's office in this contract with HDK.
Well, I think you need to give the voters a little more time for input. This was, excuse me, a surprise.
Okay.
All right.
Commissioner Bueller, you have any questions for Marty?
I may have to write them.
I don't have any more questions, but I agree with Commissioner Cook. Exactly what we're trying to do is to have a forum where we can hear from the public, and this is the $175,000. I know it sounds like a lot. It is, but it's going to help us refine then what we are to do with the Expo Center. And I know we got a couple of emails from people who said, we approved this 2 years ago, well, the tax was approved 2 years ago, but it just went into effect in January. So we haven't even started receiving those monies.
Yeah.
These projects take so much time. I know we've been talking about this for a long amount of time. But now is when we have the dollars coming in, but we really need to define what we are to do. And this is, in my opinion, this will help us get there.
I understand. Sorry, I understand that, but this was a surprise,
And it might have been.
and it seems,
Well, and we
and
had.
a surprise to the voters.
Okay. Well, and we had approved that, we had agreed to enter into negotiations for the contract with HTK, but we had not had a full contract yet. But this is, as Jim Crowell said, this is phase 1. So this is not the full contract, but this has been talked about for since months, yeah.
I think the voters would like an opportunity to have a little more input.
And Marty, that's where we're going
Yeah,
with this.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
you, though.
Feeling better.
Yeah, I do too.
God.
Sorry.
Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Commissioner Archer, I know
Yes,
we do
Commissioner.
have Bill Beach, who is a fairly new board member for the advisory board for the Expo Center. I'm glad he's here. I don't know if we have any other board members here or not, but just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other? Oh,
If I might,
yes, absolutely.
actually, the fees we're paying in this Phase A are a little bit more because we've built in more time for more public input and to do the study. So had we not taken that step, so I think this commission has even been more careful during this phase to make sure that we're doing everything we can to engage the public and to gather as much information as possible. I suppose we'll hear throughout this project that we're moving too fast, and at the same time that we're not moving fast enough. I don't know where else we go at this point other than to start the process with this contract.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Jim. Additional comments or questions?
Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Cook.
This is the largest capital improvement plan that Shawnee County, or one of the largest that we've engaged in, with $45 million. This is a huge project for capital improvement for Shawnee County, and it's one that we want to get right. And that's why we need the public engagement, that's why we need the market study, and we have a building that's, one of the criticisms of the Expo Center is it's a white elephant. I think that's wrong to have that label attached to the Expo Center because there is so much that happens at the Expo Center, and it is such a huge part of our community. But we want to make sure that we get this right and that this is a building that's relevant not just for today, but as I said, for the next 20 or 30 years. And I think that's why this public engagement piece of Phase 1 is such a key piece for the whole renovations. and I would make a motion to approve the contract.
I'll second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next item, please.
Item E, Administrative Services. Number 1, consider approval of request to offer Susan McGee the position of Deputy Financial Administrator at Step 12 due to her 20-plus years of experience, resulting in a salary, including benefits, of $97,453.76.
Good morning, Betty Griner, Director of Administrative Services. I am excited to be able to bring you such an experienced and qualified candidate for the Deputy Financial Administrator for the county. This position of Deputy Financial Administrator is a vital position within the county concerning financial reporting, operations, and budgeting. Susan, who is Susan McGee, is the candidate I want to bring to you. She has over 20 years of experience in accounting and financial management. She's been a CPA for 17 years, has an MBA in accounting and finance, has experience in budget development and oversight, and also in public financing and bond rating. So she comes very well qualified for this position. Because of that, I would like to start her at Step 12. CBIZ has decided the range and grade for this position, so that is not in question. It's just the step where we would start her at. And like I say, for these 20-plus years of experience, I'd like to start her at Step 12, which means her salary would be at $73,361.60. And then Cindy has already told you what it would be, including benefits.
Well, I think anytime you can hire a CPA, it's a smart thing to do. So I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second, but note that there are no additional funds that need to come to your budget. This is all
No,
within
yes,
your
there is
budget.
room in my budget to cover this, yes.
Thank you. That's second.
Motion made to approve by Commissioner Archer, seconded by Commissioner Bueller. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Next item.
Item E2, presentation regarding the Kansas Association of Counties Budget Workshop.
On February 22nd, I attended the KAC County Budgeting Workshop. For those that don't know, KAC stands for Kansas Association of Counties. And it was a very informative meeting, and just wanted to go through some of the things we covered at that meeting, kind of as a precursor to our upcoming budget process, which will be starting soon. It always creeps up on us. And what I would like to suggest is, as you have comments and questions as I go through this, if you would just bring those up as we go through them, because there is different categories. They started out by talking about kind of the purpose and the process and all of that, and that they stated that the county budget is the roadmap for the coming year, the single most important responsibility for the Board of County Commissioners, and the biggest policy development tool available to the governing body. So I think this just brings back to our mind, we go through this every year, but how important this task is, and that just how it affects the future, the coming year, the future, and everything associated with that. Now they showed us a contrast, and I think everyone is familiar with a budget that a business comes up with. And this just kind of shows the contrast between how a business comes up with a budget and the government. A business budget is profit-driven, where government is service-driven. A business has customers, where the government has the taxpayers. The business is looking at the price and the product that they're going to sell, while the government has taxes that they levy and then service fees. The business looks at cost of service, where the government looks more at cash flow. A business has an operating budget, and as such, that operating budget can be a little flexible. Where government has a legal budget that does not have that flexibility in it. And then a business has hired officers, where the government has elected officials and department heads. So I just thought this was kind of especially for the public, a good way to kind of compare and contrast the difference between a business budget and a governmental budget. Then next we talked about budget impacts and certain things that impact the budget each year. And the first one is increased costs of doing business. We talked about health insurance. We talked about CAPERS and KP&F contributions and how increases in those can affect just the cost of doing business. Utilities is another item. One of the biggest items that we are facing in Shawnee County right now are our salary increases. 2018 will be the third year of implementing the compensation study. So that will be a large increase in costs for us as we face this next year. The next category they talked about is in reduction in revenues. Becky Neosi just talked to you about mortgage registration fees and how the legislature had changed that and the reduction in fees there. And that will be phased out by 2019. Another thing that was brought up was the LAVTR, which is the Local Ad Valorem Tax Reduction Program, and then also city-county revenue sharing. These are two items, as I understand it, are bills that are legislature statutes that are still on the books, but each year, for the last, gosh, I don't know, for quite some time, the legislature has suspended those payments. So those payments have not come to the county, and those were to help offset ad valorem tax and keep property taxes lower. Because of these reductions in fees that we're talking about, there's been more and more reliance on property taxes by the county. Another thing I heard quite a bit at this, and doesn't affect Shawnee County so much, but there were quite a few counties that were talking about their oil and gas valuations. And those properties have received such a decrease in valuations and is having a tremendous impact on their taxes that are coming in. The last category here is unfunded state and federal mandates. And they talked about some of those that, you know, the county has to comply with, but there is not money coming with those to cover it. Just one example that they talked about is the quick dip law. And basically that is state parole and probation violators are put in county jails for 2 or 3 days to get their attention, basically, and to try to get them back on track. But there's no funding or reimbursement on that. That is a county expense. I had to get a little information from Brian on that as to what that quick dip law was. So anyway, these are just things that impact our budget that you know, we have to deal with as we look at these items. Let's see, go back here on that one. They also talked about the tax lid implications. That was one of our major topics that we talked about. And as you know, any increase in total tax levied, now this is not the mill levy, but this is the total amount of tax levied, is limited to the 5-year CPI increase with some exceptions. The 5-year CPI increase, that the state has not determined yet how they will calculate that. They gave the information that it would be 1.3% or 1.4% for the 2018 budget, depending on how they decide to compute it. There are exceptions to the tax lid: debt service, payments for special assessments, court judgments, settlements, and legal fees, disaster costs if the disaster is declared by the federal or state officials, and And then any additional cost over this CPI increase for law enforcement, fire protection, and emergency medical services. So in our situation, Johnson County, of course, law enforcement would be something we would be looking at. There's also an exception if your property tax revenue has declined one or more of the preceding 3 years. There's a formula to calculate that. Also, there's a formula if you have if there was a loss in assessed value due to legislature or judicial action or the Board of Tax Appeals. So basically, what this tax lid says that if you are going to adopt a budget over the amount allowable by the tax lid, then you have to have a public mail ballot election and a vote. That would be on September 15th. So in a practical matter, what that means is if you are going to go out for an election, you would really have to have two budgets prepared. You would have to have a budget for if the vote passes. You would also have to be prepared if it does not pass. So adds a little bit of a complication there and process there too. They also went on and talked about the budget process, and our speaker spoke of three different approaches. The first approach he talked about was POG, which is priorities of government. And in this case, you identify the priorities in each department. Say each department, the example he gave, each department would list their top 10 activities. Of those top 10 activities, they would mark which ones are mandated by statute or by resolution, and then which ones are elected or elective items and then you would establish a cost for each of those activities. Then once you have developed that, especially along with this cost, you also have to develop a plan of evaluating what is effective in that activity. Then you would use these priorities to allocate the resources. You would basically prioritize all of the activities of the county and with their associated costs, and you would fund them until the resources ran out. He mentioned that this is a very hard and a very time-consuming process. It would have to be, a continual thing, basically, year after year, but very time-consuming. The next type or approach he talked about was priority-based budget cycle, which you get stakeholder input through surveys, roundtables, that type of thing. You come up with your long-term goals, your visioning. Then you come up with the short-term goals and the actions you want to take. Then by direction of staff, you kind of set the guidelines for the budgets. You come up with a preliminary budget before you actually adopt it. Then you monitor it. You adjust it as is needed. So it's kind of a cycle on this. The third one he talked about was department budget requests. And he said there again, there's several ways of doing it. One is to provide departments with parameters, say a percentage increase that they're allowed when they submit their budget. The second is that to provide departments with a base budget amount, a set amount. That can be the same as last year. It could be the same as last year with a percentage increase. It could be the same as last year with a percentage decrease. It wouldn't and every department wouldn't necessarily have those same parameters based on your priorities or how you wanted to set that. And then if departments did not, departments could request, they could apply or ask for a supplemental amount. So they could make a request, a supplemental request, if they felt like they needed additional funds for that. And then there again, you would take all this and it would be budgeting on priorities. And I think this is probably right now the closest that we are doing And there again, you have to kind of look at the priorities and you spend the money until it runs out, basically. But just 3 different methods that were discussed to, come up with how you allocate those budget dollars. We also talked about cash reserves and the importance of maintaining prudent reserve amounts. And it's important for several reasons. One, as we know, creditworthiness, to meet cash flow needs for the coming year and for the future. And then to mitigate current and future risks, whether there's revenue shortfalls or unanticipated expenditures, like some type of a disaster, something like that. And then also to ensure stable tax rates. And then its discussion is what is the right amount? What is the right amount of a reserve? And there's not any one set answer for that. The GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officer Association, they recommend a minimum of 2 months of expenditures or 15% of the general fund budget. Now, the bond rating companies want it higher than that. So that, I would say, would be absolutely the minimum. And then this is for the general fund. Other funds might be less. They may be a lesser percentage based on the purpose of the fund. They also talked and had an example of a formal reserve policy. That is not something we do not currently have. We have kind of an informal policy that we have discussed at the budget and in that process. But this is something I would like to look at, and I will be, developing one. What it does, it would determine a percentage for each fund that you want that reserve level to be maintained at. You would develop a process on how any excess reserves could be spent and what they could be spent on. And then you develop a course of correction if it falls below that amount. So, like I said, this is something I will be working on to develop a formal policy that I will bring to you. And then we also talked about the importance of communicating the budget to the citizens and to the taxpayers. And we, talked about many different ways to do that. It sounds like all counties have difficulty in bringing the taxpayers into this budget process and to get them engaged in it. We talked about surveys, workshops, a budget forum or open house, and really, as we talked with all the different counties, none of these have been very successful. So I don't know that I have any magic formula there for that. We did talk also about communicating the approved budget to the public and how important that is. Now, the state budget, the certification that the clerk's office sends into the state is obviously very important, and it's important that we make that available to the public, and the clerk's office does have that on their website that anyone can look at that. But it's a very lengthy document. I think it can be very confusing to taxpayers because the expenditures that it shows there includes our reserves. So it's just I think it's hard for most taxpayers to read. They talked about making it readable information. This is what we have on our website, this budget at a glance. In fact, they actually had that as an example of one that they used, and something that just breaks it down for the taxpayer that is not an accountant, is not a CPA, that can look at this and try to make sense of it and understand it better. And then they also talked about some comparative values, which I think this one is something that I picked up that I think would be a really good thing for us to look at. Not only maybe taking a pie chart, when someone pays money to the county, I think it's very easy for them to think all that money goes to the county, and doing kind of a pie chart that shows how much goes to the school districts, how much goes to the city and to the county, and those kind of things. And then also comparing how much they pay to the county compared to other things, how much they pay a month to the county for their property taxes compared to a cell phone bill or something like that that they're used to paying on a monthly basis. So that's kind of I also added in here, I said that our 2018 budget time frame, it will be coming up really quickly here. So this is kind of a preliminary time frame that we've come up with, and that the budget packets would go out to the departments for them to start working on March 31st. They would be due in to audit finance by May 15th. All of those would be reviewed and checked, and the budget requests would all go to the commissioners on June 1. Then July 5th, we would start the budget hearings, and we'll try to do those in categories as much as we can. Then August 3rd would be our public hearing. After that, then at the regular commission meetings, we would start that you would review the public hearing information and input, and then you would start making those decisions, and then the budget would be adopted by August 21st. So that, like I say, this is preliminary, but this is what I'm looking at right now. So, questions, comments?
Questions, Commissioner Cook?
No, the state imposes upon the counties and local governments these rules, and oftentimes it's an experiment as to how it's going to work. And I just hope that Shawnee County doesn't have to lead any experiments. We've, over the last several years, have done well with our budget. We've done well in managing our expenditures and our revenue. And I would rather somebody else lead the charge on figuring out how this is all going to work in practical theory versus actual versus practical. So that's my commitment if there needs to be one.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bueller.
I am very interested in the reserve policy. To
Yes.
have those discussions now, I think is going to be good for Shawnee County in the long run. So,
I agree.
because you just never know. I mean, when I became a commissioner, our reserves were very healthy, and then the fall of 2008, you just never know. So I think the time to have those discussions are now.
I agree, and this commission's been pretty tight-fisted, I think, and our reserves are favorable now, and I think it is a good time to talk about reserves and where we go from here.
Because it depended upon the state finances and the global economy, I mean, those things impact us.
You're absolutely
They
right.
definitely do.
You're absolutely right. Thank you, Betty. Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item 5, administrative communications.
Good morning, Commissioners. Aaron Mahan, Shawnee County Emergency Management. Wanted to take just a few moments of your time and the public to remind you that this week is Kansas Severe Weather Awareness Week. Kicking off today is General Overall Preparedness Day. This evening at Washburn University at 7 o'clock is the National Weather Service and Emergency Management Severe Weather Awareness Talk. If you wanted to know more about weather, what clouds look like, how to kind of identify different types of weather and clouds, it's a great opportunity to come out and spend some time with the National Weather Service, Washburn University, and of course emergency management partners. Throughout the week, we'll be pushing out several pieces of information reference different severe weather, such as flooding, tornadoes, wildfires, all kinds of different items that we may have to deal with throughout severe weather season. Also tomorrow morning, as a reminder, 10 o'clock is the statewide tornado drill that is held in conjunction with Awareness Week. Given weather conditions, that's still up in the air right now as to whether we will set off the outdoor warning sirens or not, but we'll let everybody know first thing tomorrow whether that's actually going to happen. Also, just as a reminder, we are still on a very high fire danger watch this week. I believe that all Shawnee County fire districts are not allowing burning within their districts. So I would like the public to be especially careful when out with any fire, embers, flames, anything that might potentially cause a wildfire.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Quinn Nunner. I also work in preparedness for the Shawnee County Health Department. Today, I'm going to actually talk about Project Topeka, give you a kind of an update on that. There were several events that have happened for Project Topeka, and I got to help coordinate the canned food drive over the month of February. So we had 5 entries this year, brought in over 2,000 food items. First of all, I'd also like to thank those judges that came to help last Friday. Commissioner Archer is one of them, and Eric Ives and Shawnee from WIVW. So I want to give them a big thanks for coming and giving their time. But also, more importantly, I want to tell you about the winners. We had 2 categories. One category was that were over 4 feet in length and height, and those are the below. So we had five of those, and we had 1 winner in those 2 categories. The Emerald City for WIC actually won first place. Came complete with a tornado with wind and everything. It was actually pretty amazing. And the first place in the other category was Parks and Recreation. They had a tulip time over at Hillcrest. So I want to thank all of them for participating in this year's canned food sculpture, and hopefully we can have a few more next year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All the projects were well done, and again, thanks to Eric and Sean Wheat for judging the contest. It was appreciated. So.
Good morning, Charles Hyde of this District Court. I'd just like to report that the Division 5 construction project and renovation is substantially complete. We are in the phases right now installing the technology, and after that we'll be dealing with our punch list, and probably in the next several weeks we'll have our soft opening. So just want to thank you once again for the support.
Good deal. Thank you, Chuck.
Well, Herman Jones, Shawnee County Sheriff. I'm a get us to recall from last week when we had Extension Office there, when we had Jamie that came up, was announcing her retirement and all the happy. I'm not going to do the dance, but there are probably going to be 3 people from our agency that are going to be doing the happy dance here in a little bit. In the coming weeks, I'm honored to say that it's bittersweet that we're going to have 3 individuals retiring from our agency there. We've got, basically, when you put it all together, about 91 and a half years of service, dedicated service here. We're going to have Captain Lance Royer. He's going to be retiring after 30 years. We're going to have ACO Supervisor Vicki Hamilton. It's going to be retiring, and then also our deputy, Darren Johnson. So we're going to celebrate their retirement March 20th at the Ramada Inn at 10 o'clock. You will all be invited. We'll send you an official invite as well, but I just want to bring that to you there. But it just goes to show the dedication that we have of our employees. As you know, our most valued resource are our humans that we have. So thank you.
We do know that. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Les Crooks, Kansas Expo Center. Great weekend with the NAIA National Wrestling Championships that were broadcast on ESPN3, and also the Spirit, Mind, and Body Fair at the Ag Hall. So this week, the 5A State Basketball Tournament is in Landon. The Topeka Home Builders Show is in the Exhibition Hall, and the Kansas Hunter Jumper Association has an event at Domer. So another busy weekend.
Very good. Thank you, Les.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management. Talk about up-to-the-minute updates. The storm spotters course that Aaron talked about just a few minutes ago, just caught a call from National Weather Service. If there's a tornado watch issued, which there's a possibility of that tonight, we will postpone that event. They'll need those meteorologists to be watching for the storms, obviously. So we're going to go forward, but if there's a tornado watch issued for our county, we're going to have to postpone it.
Okay. Thank you, Dusty. Thank you for the update. Others for administrative communications? Commissioner Cook?
I don't have anything new.
Okay. Commissioner Bueller?
Just a reminder that we have our comprehensive plan steering committee tomorrow for those members who are on that committee at 3 o'clock, I believe,
Very
at the
good.
Health Agency.
Very
Health
good.
Department. Dang, still mess that up.
I don't have anything to add. Next item, please.
Item 6, executive session.
There's not a need, so we're officially adjourned. Thank you all for coming.